what are your sort of perspectives and ideas and advice to founders and CEOs right now around specifically creating that culture? You can't let culture create itself, right? You and I have talked a lot about this. You have to be explicit about it. So what are some steps that founders can think about taking, either from a hiring standpoint or a values standpoint, that you feel like could really help shape a culture in a way that is positive and that supports this and moving forward?
Yeah. When we got acquired by IKEA in 2017, we redid the values. And it's not because we didn't love the values that you created, Leah. It was, and in fact, like, we all believed them, we all lived them, we all loved them. But we redid the values because we were entering a new era for the company, and we wanted people to anchor into something. And so if we ended up with the exact same list, that would have been fine. But just going through the process of redoing the values and re-looking at the values was something that brought everybody together. And so I would recommend that even if you've already written your values down, you should just redo them. Just take a look at them again and just ask yourself, given what we've gone through, a pandemic, an economic recession, and a social justice movement, like, are these the right things to have on the page or not? And if the answer is yes, great. But if the answer is like, let's tweak one of these things, then go ahead and tweak it and change it and come up with what you think is going to matter now more than it did, 2 weeks ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, even as we started this decade. But the most important thing that if you're running a company you can do is to acknowledge that there's racism in your company. And it's not because you created it. It's because the people that you hired come with whatever they have into the company. And nobody leaves all of themselves at the door. And so having the conversation about your culture and how you want the company to be represented and how you want to hire, develop, create inclusion policies, and lead is one of the most tangible things that you can do right now.
What can we do on a small team to get started on the right foot to build a diverse culture, to build a diverse team? So how do you think about just like building the team and hiring, and what are some tactics that you've done at TaskRabbit that's aided with that?
Yeah, when you're 2 people, it's different than when you're 200 people. To sort of think about what the options are, what you can do. We've done some intentional things like create internship programs with just minorities who participate in engineering, a program called Code 2040. We've partnered with an organization called DevColor, which you might want to reach out to because it's just a network of Black engineers effectively who are all professionals in their career who spend time together on a variety of different topics. Many of them are employed and happy in their jobs. And so we've done those programs, and those programs are hard to do when you're 2 people. But if you have 10 people, you can definitely get an intern from Code 2040, right? So there's, don't think you have to be Google or Facebook or whatever to participate in some of these things. But underneath all of this is the importance of reaching out and expanding your network. Figuring out what does our network look like? How many people do we interact with that don't look like us? And then how can we change what that looks like? So I would certainly do that. And if you happen to work with recruiters, require that they bring a diverse slate of candidates to the table. And if they can't do that, then you can go work with someone else. There are a ton of recruiters out there, and it's not like there's one that's way better than the other one. And making that a requirement is one of the best ways that you can help source diverse candidates. a lot of people worry about quotas. Well, we don't want to have a quota because that's bad. We don't want to like allocate a certain number to women and a certain number to Black people because that's bad. But the better way to think about it is targets. You set a revenue target, you set a growth target, you set a budget, you set a hiring target. So why can't this just be a target that you set and you work towards and you measure people against hitting that target? These should be owned by the hiring manager. They should own the target. So of course, people operations or HR, however you describe it in your team, those people will help staff and administer, but the ownership of the target is the hiring manager for the team. If you run engineering, you have a target for the number of Black engineers you should have, the number of female engineers you should have, and this is what you're going to be measured against. And when you put the responsibility and the accountability with the hiring manager, who also has a target for shipping the product, it really changes the focus and the priority and the importance of diversity.
Mm-hmm. What is your advice to founders and CEOs that are dealing with customers that may not hold the same values, that may be racist, that may be outright just not people that they would want to be dealing with? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, it's tough when you have consumers, and that's a hard one. I mean, we obviously have people who use TaskRabbit who come from all walks of life, and we want to be the kind of company that accepts everyone. But we have to stand for something. So we've sent out if you are a TaskRabbit user, you got an email from me at some point just about what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we care about. And I think it's important as leaders to put that out there. And while you can't change a customer's behavior, you can tell them what your values are, and that may help them decide, like, I don't want to shop with you, I don't want to use your service, and that's okay. Yeah, so this is as much a, social justice moment as it is as it is an economic equity issue. And the tech industry is one of the greatest creators of wealth above any other industry in our society. And so I would like to see more participation and more diverse participation in wealth creation. And therefore, we need to have that representation in the tech industry. So thank you for the donation to Black Girls Code. I have my Black Girls Code t-shirt on today. I wore it.
I love it.
Because that's one organization that is changing the face of tech and starting at the early stages where girls are still in the process of deciding how they want to pursue their careers and where they want to go to college and their education. But it is really about changing the face of tech.
And not only as founders and CEOs, I mean, investors need to step up too. We need to be seeking out, those founders that are underrepresented, that have great ideas, that may not have been given the same opportunities or the same path to Silicon Valley as everyone else. And so that's something I'm really passionate about too, is like, if we all just really do our part and, like you said, set the targets and like just really do the work, like that's how things change.